Welcome to the Puppet Zone. My name's Greg, and today I want to share with you a few tips for puppet group leaders. These are some things that I've kind of used over the years that I think would be helpful. And so if you've got a group of 2 or 3 or 12 or 20, or maybe you're just doing this by yourself, I think these would be helpful. And so for my first tip, I want to suggest that you create a puppet stand, or at least find a puppet stand so that you can keep your puppets off the floor. I found there's no better way to tear up a puppet or just get it really nasty than letting people throw them on the floor. They get stepped on, they get dirty, they get tore up. And so we use some simple PVC pipe stands, and they work really well, and they're fairly inexpensive to make. And so we have one of these by each chair as our puppeteers work. If they're working with 2 puppets, then they can switch them off fairly easily. But they worked out really well. And so these are made out of 1/2-inch PVC pipe. It's a plastic pipe that you can find at hardware stores. And you can cut them with like a little hacksaw, or they even make PVC pipe cutting tools. Those are great. That's a good investment if you're going to make several of these, because it just makes it easier. And then you use a couple of different connectors and some caps to make it look good, and yeah, it works out really well. And so I'll share the diagram for this for you and some measurements. So if you're a little handy, give it a shot. Maybe there's somebody that you know that can help you put these together. You can also purchase puppet stands from different places, I'm sure. And so, but whatever you do, try to keep your puppets off the ground. At the very least, set them in a chair. So. The next thing that I want to share with you is the idea of creating puppet script holders, especially if you're working with kids. Well, really, even adults, it doesn't really matter. But if you're working with a puppet and you're trying to do an arm rod, or you're trying to do a prop, and you're trying to hold your script, it gets a little tough. And laying it down on the floor is difficult. And so we created some simple puppet script holders working with our kids groups. And they worked out really well, because once you got them up, you don't have to hold them. And they're made out of these plastic sheet protectors, that paper slides into. And so they're real easy to pull the scripts in and out of. And so you can swap them out. And so we just taped these together, 4 of them. And we used some of these pants hangers, I guess is what they're called. They've got these clips on them. And so they hold it pretty well. Over the years, we've done a couple of things. We started out, we just taped the scripts onto a big piece of poster board, and we used a wire hanger, and we taped it on the back, and it would hang. And that worked really well, but you couldn't change your script. So if you were doing one skit and that was it, that would work pretty well. But if you wanted to change out scripts every week for something that you're doing, having something that you can pull the page out of fairly easy and change it works out really well. And so we found this worked well too. We did occasionally, we would tape these to poster board just to give it a little more thickness, but really once it's up against the stage, it does really well. Now if you're going to have 2 people sharing a script, we found that it's easier to let them highlight their part with different colors, and that way their eyes are kind of following their color. My last suggestion for these is, if you're going to use them, make sure you practice with them, because it is a little different than holding your script up and following along on your own. And so it takes a little bit of adjustment and practice to be able to follow along with your script. The other thing you want to do is number your script so they can see from which page they go. Are they going to go across and then down? Or are they going down and across? But that all works out when you practice with these puppet script holders. The next thing that I wanted to share is some ways to store your puppets and keep them safe. And so we started out with just a few puppets, and they were a little expensive, and so I invested in some plastic tubs, just plastic boxes with lids that would come off, and it kept them safe and secure. And I snapped a picture of the puppets, and I taped it on the front so they would be easy to find, because you can't see through these. And so that worked out pretty well. This picture is about shot. We need to replace it. So these worked well. But as you come up with more and more puppets, that may be a little more expensive than you want to do. And so for us, we had quite a few puppets over the years, and so we moved over to cardboard boxes. And what I would do is I would get the paper boxes. When the office would buy reams of paper that would come in a box like this, I would just ask them for the box, and they're a perfect size for puppets. And so we would store them inside, and they worked out really well. Now again, you can't see inside of them, and so we tended to name our puppets, and so we would write the names on them. But if you didn't work with the puppets regularly, you didn't know, what they were called. And so we moved back to putting a picture of the puppet on there. You can take it with a digital camera and print it out and tape it on there. If you bought your puppet somewhere, a lot of times you can get the picture off the website from where you bought it, print that off and tape it on there, and that works out really well. We always talked about getting some clear boxes to put puppets in so you can see them. But really, these cardboard paper boxes have worked really well for years for us. And really, they hold up pretty well. Sometimes you have to tape them if they've been treated a little rough by puppeteers, but they tend to hold up pretty well. So, the last thing that I want to suggest is to create a puppet first aid kit. And so years ago when we first started going to competitions and doing different things with our puppets, I put together a kit because it doesn't matter where you go, what you do. It seems like when you get there, something is messed up. A prop is broke in transit, or your puppet has lost an eye, or its arm got tore, or the costumes are falling off. And so we put together a kit, and we just kept some basic supplies in there. We got a good pair of scissors and some rubber bands, some safety pins, a little bit of Velcro. Typically we have a hot glue gun and some hot glue, but then some other things like paper clips and a glue stick, some kind of a good marker, some string, and so whatever you do, you want to have some ways to repair things, because it seems like something always messes up along the way. And so as you go along, you'll find some ways to do that. I always had just some of these googly eyes in there, because if your puppet loses an eye in transit and you can't find it, you can always stick one of those on there. It may look a little weird, but probably not as weird as a puppet missing one of its eyes. So yeah, a puppet first aid kit. And so you can use, this was a first aid kit we got years ago. We didn't need it after the stuff inside of it expired, and so we converted it over. But you can use a small tackle box, just some kind of plastic box, Ziploc bag, anything that will hold your stuff that you can throw in with you as you travel. So, all right, well, that's what we've got for today. I hope it was helpful, and we'll see you next time here on the Puppet Zone.